welcome to another Tonic craft kit unboxing video. Today's one is for kit number 59, which is called Clocks and Cogs, so you can tell that this is going to be a fantastic kit for maybe slightly more masculine sort of cards if you struggle with that kind of idea. It's obviously not suitable for every sort of masculine occasion. It's more for people who love clocks or timepieces, or maybe have a collection of watches, or love doing all sorts of like electronics or mechanics with all sorts of different cogs and stuff like that. But I think this is a fantastic kit and I have really loved playing with this one. I have got 10 samples to show you as well. So, and it's a really versatile one too. Lots of the different dies can be used to create different timepieces really. So let's get on with the unboxing. So we've got our bag of gorgeous Nuvo goodies, which is always my favourite. And looking at the Nuvo goodies, you can see what the kind of colour scheme is for this kit. So it's kind of got turquoises, almost like bronzy gold colours, and then this deep red as well. So really gorgeous colours that they've chosen to go with these two. Maybe even stuff you might not have thought to pick. I think usually when I think of cogs and mechanical stuff like that, I tend to think of silver to cut them out of and stuff. But having the sort of coppery colours, it sort of changes it up a little bit, gives it a little bit of a different feel. But obviously you can definitely use all of these bits and pieces with silver stuff from your stash as well. But I really enjoyed this colour scheme. So let's have a look at what we get. First of all, probably the biggest item that's in here is a full-size pot of the Nuvo Crackle Mousse. So you might not have tried this before, but the Crackle Mousse is, you can just use it like a normal mousse, and if you apply it really thinly you'll just get like almost like a crazed kind of look. But if you apply it thicker and through a stencil or just thickly onto a piece of card, you'll get that really cool cracked kind of effect, and it looks fantastic through stencils because it kind of all cracks in a pattern in the actual pattern work. I'll show you a sample of it later on one of the cards that I've done, but it's a really cool medium to play with. And you want to let it air dry, and I'm sorry if I'm repeating myself because I'm sure I said this relatively recently in another video, but you want to let it air dry. You don't want to force heat it, because if you do, it kind of bubbles and gives a different texture, unless you want that kind of texture. And you also want to make sure when you leave your piece of card to dry that you kind of elevate it off your surface so that the air can circulate all the way around it. That just means that once it is dry, it'll have dried all the way through the cardstock and you shouldn't get anything flaking off of it. And you can also use this onto the textured Craft Perfect. I did one of them onto the textured Craft Perfect, and it did actually stay intact on that as well. So even though it has a texture, it will stay on there too. So this is the gorgeous Water Nymph colour, and this is this is the new pot, but you can see how lovely and full you get this gorgeous creamy texture of mousse. But I've got my original pot here just to show, even though my pot's getting down to that little left in it, it still works and still cracks. If you do find your pot's got to this sort of level and maybe you hadn't used it in a few months, like I hadn't used mine in a few months, spray it with a couple of spritzes of water. I would suggest distilled water, just so you don't get any bacteria from the tap, or any contaminants and stuff that might make it have that mildewy kind of smell. But just a couple of sprays of water and leave it on your desk for like half an hour, and it should become a little bit more looser and less kind of crusty. But even if it has gone crusty and you reactivate it with water, it does still work absolutely perfectly, because my samples that I've done were using this pot that I had to kind of reactivate a little bit. However, I have noticed that this does not dye like the same way that a normal Nuvo mousse would. This seems to be much easier to kind of rejuvenate. Maybe it's because this one hadn't been left as long as some of my really old Nuvo mousses, but I found that this one, I think it has a higher water content in it anyway to create that kind of cracking effect. I think it's the sort of the water evaporating and stuff out of it. But yeah, I didn't find this one was too difficult to kind of rejuvenate back to being able to be used. But it's a beautiful colour, this one. I really like this. You can tell from how much I've used out of my pot. This is my first pot of it, so I'm very pleased to have a new one there ready for when I want to use a lot of it on a project. So that is the Water Nymph Crackle Mousse, and you can actually colour your Crackle Mousse as well. You could even colour it with the next product in the kit, although red and blue together, I mean, I suppose it would make a kind of dull purpley colour, but you could experiment with a small little amount to check you like the colour of it, but you could definitely mix in any of your Nuvo shimmer powders with this to colour it as well, although if you're adding powdery products, you might then want to add a couple of spritzes of water just to make sure it's nice and spreadable through your stencil. So that is the first product. The second product is a full-size Nuvo shimmer powder, which is Maroon Spark. So really gorgeous deep dark red colour. It actually has like little flecks of really dark bits, like really dark brown or almost black in it as well. I haven't actually done a specific sample of it to show you, but I did show it in the colour trend when this came out, and I think this was in the Harvest Moon colour trend. I think it was. I'm sorry if that's wrong, but I think it was that colour trend. But it's really gorgeous, rich kind of colour, and I actually used it for a squishy, messy kind of background, using this with the next two products and the Crackle Mousse. So all 4 Nuvo products actually are mixed together to create some backgrounds. But you can also water it down a little bit and use it with the sponges that we've got in this kit as well, and sponge it through a stencil, sponge it onto your stamp and stamp with it. So there's so many different ways of using your Nuvo shimmer powders. You don't have to just sprinkle it on card and spray it with water and get that sort of starburst sort of effect. You can definitely mix it in with other mediums to change the colour of it, or you can play around with applying it to your stamps and stamping with it, or just splatting with it with a paintbrush as well. And it also works really nicely mixed with the next product, which is Glacier Paste, and this is the Bronze Medal Glacier Paste. This one definitely came out in the Harvest Moon colour trend. I remember this one being in there. But you can definitely mix these two together to give this more of like a rich reddy kind of tone. That works really nicely as well. So this is the Glacier Paste. You can use Glacier Paste in tons of different ways as well. I do remember saying in my colour trend video with this specific Glacier Paste, usually I tell you it's probably best to use it flat, like just pouncing with a sponge through a stencil, and not use it with like a palette knife through a stencil, because this isn't specifically a 3-dimensional product. It does tend to dry flat, so you kind of waste your product a little bit if you apply it thickly, because it is just going to flatten down as it dries. However, this colour, the like the base colour that it's in, can be a little bit dark and murky if you just use it really thinly. So try and get some of that gorgeous gold mica in it when you're using it thinly. It looks much better, but have a play with it though. It's a really intriguing kind of colour, I'd say, because the base is quite different to the actual kind of mica particles that are in there, but it's definitely really fun to play with, and you can do all sorts of different techniques with it as well. I have quite a few different techniques to show you. Actually, I've got this piece here. Let me show you this. So this was using the stencil that comes in this kit, and you can see from this angle everything looks beautiful and golden, but as you tip it out of the light, this is what I mean, like it's a slightly darker, deeper colour, but you might want that look. But going slightly thicker with this colour specifically is good, because it gives you that lovely gold sort of sheen from the actual Glacier Paste as well. But I thought I'd just say that, just in case anybody has heard me say use it thinly, because this colour I would say use it slightly thicker than you normally would. So that's your Glacier Paste. Then we're also getting a full-size bottle of Nuvo Vintage Drops, and this is one of the original colours. This is Bohemian Teal. So if you're new to Tonic and Nuvo, you might not have seen this colour before, but it's a beautiful teal colour, and it really does go lovely with these kind of coppery sort of tones as well, and even with the dark red, they really tone nicely together and are fantastic for creating all of your different products. And you also have a sheet of card in here as well that matches this colour really well, almost like a perfect exact match actually. And Vintage Drops, I have done a full video on Vintage Drops before. They come in more of a rectangular kind of bottle with these lines on the side, which makes it super duper easy for squeezing your Nuvo drops out. And they also have the hexagonal lid, which you might have seen on the Dream Drops and the Aroma Drops. They both have the hexagonal lid on them as well, but these actually have the square bottles, so that's how you can tell them apart on your desk. I also like the square bottles because you can fit more in your storage. I store all of my drops in those Perspex nail varnish storage stands, and Dream Drops and Vintage Drops are particularly good for getting more in a row because of the shape of them. You can squash them up closer together. So yeah, for storage purposes, they're really great for storing because they've got more of that like rectangular kind of shape. But Vintage Drops have a satin matte kind of finish to them, so they won't dry really glossy like a gloss drop. They don't have a metallic finish or anything, but they dry with a much matter kind of finish. It's not 100% matte, you can still see like light reflected off it, but it's more of like that satin matte kind of finish, and it does take 48 hours for that matte appearance to, you know, have properly sort of appeared on your drop. So that is the gorgeous Vintage Drops. And then to apply any of these products, I was testing with my really dirty sponge here. Every product I tried with this sponge and it works fantastically. So you're actually getting 2 of these in your kit. And if you want to buy any more, you can buy them in packs of 4 on the website, the mini ones. They used to also do larger ones as well, which I think you got in a 2-pack, but I'm not sure if they do them anymore. But I do really love the mini ones. And you have the sort of rounder end that you can do really large areas with, and you do also have a pointy end. So here I have like completely used every portion of this with the different colours of products, but you can like specifically have one sponge for a colour and you could use it for larger areas or for finer areas with the point on it as well. And I have washed this out. I used this with the mousse, with the drops, with the shimmer powder, and with the glacier paste, and with the shimmer powder glacier paste mixture actually. And you can see it's still, I mean, it's probably not 100% as soft as the original, but it's definitely still soft and pliable for you to be able to use again the next time. So you can just run it under the tap to rinse it all off. Make sure you kind of try and take out as much of the excess of whatever you've been using onto a piece of scrap paper first, just so you're not washing that all down the sink, but running it under like warm water and then leaving it to air dry works really nicely for making this perfect for the next time you want to use it. So I thought I'd mention that you can definitely use all of these products with those sponges. So next, let's take all of this out of the box. So next we have all of our cardstock and papers. So to begin with, we have got, I think, 5 different textured Craft Perfects. We've got brick red, apricot orange, ginger pie, then ocean blue and teal blue as well as our gorgeous selection of colours. And as I said at the beginning, it's this gorgeous like deep red, sort of coppery orange kind of colour, and these teal colours is the whole sort of colour theme for this kit. And it's a really fun one to play with actually. It works really nicely with the stamps and dies and everything in this kit. So those are the textured Craft Perfects that have that linen texture on the one side and then they're smooth on the other side. Then we've also got 2 kind of luxury cardstocks. We've got this gorgeous one, which is the Rose Gold Bloom, which is one of their foiled craft cards, but it's the rose gold foiling in that sort of like ditzy floral kind of pattern onto the craft card, and then it is actually just normal craft card on the back as well. So if you don't like this kind of pattern, or you don't like this colour of foiling perhaps, you can still definitely use that piece of craft card as well for more masculine kind of themed cards. Then, or vintage actually works really nicely. Then we also have this one, which is the Sienna Treasure, which was also in the Harvest Moon colour trend. Really gorgeous textured cardstock. It's like the silver silk and the cinnamon silk, and I think it was called gold silk actually as well. But now we've got this gorgeous coppery sort of colour. I love this one, and that texture stays when you die cut as well. I really love that one. I have so many sheets of all of the different colour variations of these ones. They're just fantastic. Then I will hold these up underneath these 2 other sheets so that they're not just reflecting my entire room, but these 2 are 2 pieces of the mirror card, and the first one is Opera Red and the second one is Rose Platinum, and that Rose Platinum works perfectly with that foiled craft card. You can see how absolutely perfectly those 2 foil colours match. So if you really want to just use these 2 together, you'll get a really gorgeous cohesive kind of look to your project as well. So I love that they've thought about giving you a solid of that kind of mirrored finish. So those are all of your speciality kind of cards and your texture Craft Perfects. Then you do also get 2 sheets of patterned paper, I think. Yeah, I'm pretty sure you get 2 sheets, but they didn't have them when they sent out my kit, so they've just sent me printed versions, but yours will be edge to edge, proper printed patterned papers, and you'll get 2 of the same sheet, and it will be this on one side and this on the other side. So this is actually, it kind of looks a little bit like watercolour paper with some like, either like aging or something spilt on it, that kind of vintagey sort of look with that sort of distressed kind of edge to it. Could be aged with a tea bag, it could just be actual old aging, or it could have just been water damaged at some point, but it's a really nice subtle kind of pattern that you could start with and sort of build up. So yours will be edge to edge printing and proper patterned papers, and then on the back of this will be this pattern, which has got a really fine stripe in it. It's a lovely like pink ombre. The stripe almost disappears at this end because it's got like the same colour. This darker colour on the end is like the same colour as the stripe, but it's a beautiful ombre from darkest to then lightest in the middle, and it's got that really fine sort of striped pattern on there as well. So you will get, these pieces will be on the back of each other, and then you'll get 2 of them. So you can either use 2 of this or 2 of this or 1 of each to play around for your cards. So that is a patterned paper. Then we have got all of the stamps and dies, and we even have a stencil in this month's kit too, and I got the sticker to show you as well. So a really lovely selection of goodies in this month's kit. So firstly, this is the sticker, which says Clocks and Cogs, and it's got a gorgeous Roman numeral kind of face of a clock going around the edge, and I think this is the same size as the die actually. So I mean, you could cover that central portion and use it on a project as well. You don't have to just have this as a sticker for the front of your kit folder. You could actually use this as well if you wanted to, because you've got circular elements, or even the cog here would cover that kind of element in the centre. So that's your sticker. Then this I think is like the free gift portion of it, but we seem to just be combining everything now, but I think this is the free gift sort of portion. But it's a beautiful stencil. I love it when they include stencils, because they haven't had that many new stencils recently. I think it was maybe a year ago the last time they brought out a stencil that wasn't in a kit or something, you know, just an individual stencil. So it's really nice to see a new stencil, and this goes fantastically with all of the dies and some of the stamps in here as well. So you've got, it's kind of like 2 patterns in one, and you've got this beautiful cog portion at the top with really large going to really small, and then even just little dots as well for that pattern. And I really like this pattern too. So it's kind of like circles with arrows going through the centre of them. I really love that design. It's very kind of modern feeling, I think. You could definitely do this in like bright primary kind of colours and give it a completely different feel, but it also works really nicely for the background of a card with cogs and stuff on as well. So I think it's a really cool one, this one. And I've used this quite a few times. I've used it just stenciling through with the drops using the sponge. I've done the Crackle Mousse thickly through it with both designs, and I've also done the Glacier Paste through it just by itself, and I think I did also do a mixture of these two through part of the stencil as well for one of the other cards. So all of your mediums will work perfectly through this, but you can also just use your normal like distress inks or blending inks as well. I did use Abandoned Coral on one of my cards too, but all sorts of different inks and mediums and Nuvo products will go through this stencil absolutely perfectly. If you're using red in particular, you might get a little bit of staining on your stencil. There's a little bit on mine, but it's nothing too much to worry about. And if you want to clean any of these products off of your stencil, you want to be a little bit careful around some of these cog portions. There isn't anything that would bend too badly, but just be a little bit wary as you're cleaning it. But just an old toothbrush and running it under some old water, maybe with a little bit of washing up liquid as well, just cleans it off perfectly. So that's your stencil. Then let's look at the die set next. So I'll zoom you in for the die set. So there are multiple different pieces in this die set that can help you create different timepieces. So I think the main ones it's supposed to make is like a carriage clock using this piece, a watch, or also, again, using this piece, a little stopwatch or pocket watch kind of design as well. But you can also, I mean, I don't 100% know if it looks like one, but to me it looks like one. You can also turn this into like a nurse's watch as well. And it kind of looks like I put the clock face on upside down on my card, but I'm pretty sure they're supposed to be up the wrong way, so that they're clipped on your pocket and then you can lift it up. but I might be wrong about that. But I think it's a really cool set because you can do all of those different designs with it. I was thinking of trying to extend this and turn it into a grandfather clock, because my nan's got a grandfather clock. I mean, it literally does have that kind of ledge there, so you could just take another rectangle of card, maybe put it on a slimline or DL card, going in portrait mode, and just take another rectangle, have the little door on the front, maybe have a little doorknob, maybe one of the circles falling out of one of the cogs would work as the doorknob, and then you could even take this portion, cut it off here, and stick this back on the bottom, and then it gives it like the fancy foot off the bottom of a grandfather clock as well. And my nan's one also has like 3 little balls with little birds sitting on top. I think they're little eagles or something, but you could also do something like that on the top of it as well. Or maybe you got the cuckoo clock showcase from a while ago. You might be able to use this larger clock face on there as well, or bring in some of the cog elements too. They might work nicely with that actually. So yeah, loads of different variations that you can do with this. So I will show you all of the different dies here. Let's start with the watch, because I think this is like one of the easiest sort of ones to show. So you have this piece here, which is supposed to be one side of the watch strap, and then on the other side you can cut the holes in it. And then on the side that you don't have the holes in, you have your little buckle piece as well, which you can stick on to the end of there, so it kind of looks like the watch will go round and buckle into that side. And then I was also using this piece. Oh, you need the face of the watch as well. You have 2 different circles that you could use, and you can actually use one of the stamps as well. So you have these 2 circles that actually layer inside each other, and one of the stamps, you can actually use that central circle to cut out a clock face that is stamped then as well. But you do also have the slightly bigger one, so you can use one of your specialty papers behind there. But you do also have this die in here as well, which has sort of the indication of the numbers around a clock in the background, but then it says good times across the middle, so you can also use that as the face of your watch as well. And then similarly to creating the watch, but just using one of these sort of strap portions, you can actually use, well, this is how I created it. I put this piece, which I think is supposed to be kind of like the band that holds 2 cogs together, but I thought putting it up there like that makes it look like a nurse's watch, and then the face is upside down and you would lift it up to look at it. Or it could be a medal actually. You could turn this into a kind of medal as well, with the specific colour of ribbon for whatever kind of medal it is too. Or even going a little bit further, you could, you know, when you go to like theme parks and Disney and stuff, and you get those like big coins that are kind of like the commemorative coins. I think they're usually silver, but you could kind of make a medal and put that on there as well. Maybe even make it with a safety pin or a brooch back on it, so that it can actually be worn as well. So that might be a cool idea. So yeah, loads of different ways. Just talking about the watch and like a nurse's watch and a medal already, we've got all of those different kind of ways that we could use it. Then you can also take these 2 pieces here, and you could use one of those circles to cut the centre out and do like a shaker centre to it if you want to as well. But you can use these 2 pieces plus this piece, and you've got the chain as well. Oh, it kind of goes that way, to turn this into a pocket watch. Or if you take this piece out the centre and do your own middle piece, you could turn it into a stopwatch as well. If somebody loves doing, I don't know, sprints or long distance running, or you know, something like that that uses a stopwatch a lot, you could do a cool card for them with that. And then you do also get the 2 hands for the clock as well. Oh, and I forgot to mention, so you get these 2 hands that are sort of meant for the larger clock, but you do also get these hands that you can use on the watch or any other variation of the watch kind of idea as well. So you can actually put the hands on the clock as well, or if you use the stamped image, they already have the hands on the clock too. So all of those pieces, but then you can also just use this as the clock face and turn it into a carriage clock. Or if you have Disney fans in your life, maybe you could turn it into Cogsworth. I think he's called Cogsworth, from Beauty and the Beast. You could turn him into that and have a little face on there as well. Or, as I said before, you could turn it into more of like a wall-mounted, smaller grandfather clock, or turn it into a proper large grandfather clock as well. And you could even do some cool techniques to give that kind of stained wood sort of finish to it. You could make it look really modern and funky. You could, if you were going for the modern kind of look, you could maybe make it have sloped sides coming out and then have the pendulums visible inside it, and maybe use some of the fall away circles or circle dies from your stash to create actual pendulums hanging in there as well. So I think this set really gives you like a basis to work from, but there's so many other ways that you can play with this set or combine other bits and pieces from your stash and really take it a lot further and build on all of the ideas that they've already given you as well. So I love that about this set. Then, as well as this carriage clock or turning it into the grandfather clock, you've also got two different options for decorative portions to go in those two bottom corners as well. So I think I used this one on my one that I did, and I just cut it once and then cut it again on the other side. And then I've already shown you the little good times. Everything else that's on this magnetic sheet is gorgeous cogs. So the main piece is this lovely frame, and this fits on your smaller cards as well if you like your small cards like me. Or you could use it as a photo mat in a scrapbook album or a journal, or even in your art journal as well. You can have a quote going across the centre of it or something. But really gorgeous frame with all of these little cogs around the edge. And you can use all of these cogs as well. They don't have to just be in this frame format. Snipping these off and using them, you know, in conjunction with some of the other cogs works really nicely on your projects too. And then you kind of have a layering set on the inside of this. So you get a plain edged circle, which is bigger than the plain edged circle of the clock face, so you could use this as the outside of your pocket watch or your stopwatch as well if you wanted it to be slightly bigger, and if you wanted the face to be you know, a different proportion sort of inside the actual watch. You could have your metallic edge cut from this and then have the face on the inside, or you can use this in conjunction with that cog frame and, you know, make it a little skinny frame, maybe turn it into a shaker or something as well. Then you get this one, which is like a very shallow toothed kind of cog shape. Works really nicely as an aperture, this one as well, because the interior and exterior look the same, so it works nicely as a positive or an aperture too. So really lovely. Again, you can use it in conjunction with your pocket watch, or as a layer inside here, or to cut an aperture out as well. And then you also get this one, which is kind of like a rickrack. It's not, well, it's not quite a scallop. It is more of like a wiggle going all the way around. It doesn't quite go sort of like semicircle after semicircle. It's like a wiggle sort of edge. But again, really lovely for layering up or for adding to different designs. And then finally, 4 cogs are left. So we've got this lovely large cog. This one is really lovely, and those pieces in the middle, I've got a card, I think it's going to be the last one that I show you, how I used all of those waste pieces as well, and I think it might be my favourite card actually. So and the colours from this kit work really nicely using all of those little waste pieces. So that is the largest cog. Then we have this one, which has got different sort of fall away pieces. They're all different, so it works really nicely having them all together, and they're also all different from the ones that are around the frame too. So you can see how you could bring in this portion with this, and then like bring in like this little smallest cog, and they all look different and work really nicely together. And then we have this cog here, and then I've just shown you that smallest cog too. So a real lovely mixture of all of these different cogs that you can try and fit them together if you want to as well. I was trying to do it, but because they're all different, it wasn't really working as well as I was hoping it would. But you might be able to do it with maybe these two. They kind of look like they would fit into each other really nicely to actually make some kind of cog mechanism. What I wanted to do was have like maybe those two, maybe plus one more, and put them inside an actual shaker and make it so they kind of moved around, but they were actually in each other's teeth, so they moved around like proper cogs, but it didn't really work how I wanted it to, so I kind of gave up on that idea. But that could be another way of using them as well if you really wanted them to work. Or you could actually try using split pins or brads or something in the centres of them to try and get that kind of idea to work as well, for more of like an interactive sort of card, and you could actually like turn the cogs and stuff. So so many different ways that you can use all of these different bits and pieces. And as I said, I had so much fun with it. I've actually made 10 cards. So I'm going to put all of these away before I lose them, and then I'll come back and show you the stamp set and my samples as well. So let's have a look at the stamp set. So we've got some beautiful elements in here, and I'll point out this one first. This is the one I was saying you can take your smaller of the circle dies, so I think it will come or it will fit around that second largest cog there. The smaller one will cut out the face of your clock perfectly, so you can then use that as the face of your watch, of your nurse's watch, of your pocket watch maybe, or even as a second face in the centre of your carriage clock if you want to. I think I might have done that on mine actually. Yeah, I did. So yeah, you can definitely cut that out and use it any way you want to, or you can actually cut it out and decoupage it back on top of the alarm clock as well. So loads of different ways of using it. And if you hadn't already thought as you were looking through this that you could make an alarm clock, you actually have a stamp of an alarm clock, so it works really nicely. I mean, you could, if you're looking at these kind of things, you could make a steampunk kind of alarm clock using like the actual pocket watch sort of design or the carriage clock face of the clock, and then using these kind of like half cogs that could represent these bell portions on the top of the alarm clock, and maybe even use, I don't know, this little section here in the centre, snip the ring away and use that piece as like a little foot for the bottom of the alarm clock as well. So there's loads of different bits and pieces that you could definitely use to create an alarm clock from the die set as well if you want to. So let's have a look at all of the different elements. So we've got the gorgeous alarm clock on there, which has normal numbers for a clock, and it also has the second hand on there as well, so it kind of makes it look a little bit more modern rather than having the Roman numerals on there. So also, if you don't know your Roman numerals, or if you're not sure which way up this is supposed to go, the one that has XII is number 12, and you can tell that because it's next to number 1. So that one should be at the top as you're working with it. If you don't, I mean, I guess you can sort of work it out, because if you know this is 1, 2, 3, you would know that where that is on the clock. So I suppose it is quite easy to figure it out, but I always look for the XII to be number 12. But yeah, I thought I'd mention that just in case you don't know which way round the clock goes. Then we also have this gorgeous key, which I've actually used on my card with the carriage clock, because obviously you have to wind them up because they've got all of the cogs and stuff on the inside of the mechanism. But you could, again, if you did this as a grandfather clock, you could have the key for that as well. And then you do also have this hourglass too, which is fantastic. I love the way they've actually drawn like the level of the sand inside there as well, with the little pile at the bottom. You could also, depending what you're colouring this with, you could also do some little dots of it falling onto the pile on the inside of it as well. But I've used that on one of my cards too. And then we have lots of sentiments that mix and match with each other. So we've got sorry it's late, which, you know, is always a brilliant sentiment to have. You've got time with you is well spent. You've got one day at a time. You've got time to celebrate. You've got time to relax. You've got happy retirement, which I thought is a fantastic one. That's why I did the nurse card, because I thought, you know, that kind of idea with the nurse's watch, it kind of goes along with, could be a happy retirement card for a nurse. You've got time flies when you're having fun, and then you've also got where has the time gone. I like that one because I'm always saying that to my friends, like, how on earth is it already August in 2022? It's crazy. So where has the time gone is a really good sentiment. And then finally the last one is a little stamped cog. So you've got the stamped cogs, and then you've got all of the die cut cogs to sort of coordinate with each other as well and build up a really cool background. So if you want to do some heat embossing, that would work really nicely. Or you can stamp in your shimmer powders, you can stamp in your glacier pastes, or you could probably even stamp in your Nuvo drops as well if you want to. So, you know, lots of different mediums that you can stamp in too. So that is the gorgeous stamp set. So I've got a lovely big pile of cards here to show you. This first one is using one of the, well, part of the patterned paper as the background. And then I've also, this is where I've used the Abandoned Coral Distress ink through the stencil. And I just did the cog portion and then moved it along and did the cog portion again. And I've also done a little bit of stamping with the Cogs stamp, and I used some rich rosewood in the Nuvo hybrid ink pads. And then the rest of the background, this is where I mixed these two together. So you get that gorgeous gold mica from the Glacier Paste, but you get that lovely deep red from the Shimmer powder. And then I used the bigger end here that's very dirty to pounce that through the stencil, just really randomly using the other half of the stencil, and it looks really cool. It gives a really lovely background. And then I've made the watch for this card, so because the ends of the watches are kind of like a little bit stubby, you're not sure whether that could actually go around someone's wrist. I made it so one end hangs off, and I did it with the end with the holes on, so you've still got the buckle so you know that it's a watch, but the other end of the strap is kind of hanging off, so it looks like it could definitely go around someone's wrist. Although actually you could probably make this for children. You might even be able to make it so they'd kind of be able to wear it actually, because they'd have really small wrists that it might fit around. So you could actually even try and make a 3D watch for someone to wear actually as well. I didn't even think of that before, so you could definitely do that. For this one I used the Good Times as the centre of the watch, and then I added the hands on top of it, but you can definitely do the trick of using the circle to cut out the face of the alarm clock and using that on the watch as well. And then I also did Time to Relax as a sentiment on here too. Then I've done the pocket watch. So this has again got Good Times in the centre, and you've got those Roman numerals going around the edge, and I have shadowed it with white so they kind of stand out a little bit better, and it kind of mimics the white that's in the background. I've used that gorgeous chain, which because I've mounted this on the deeper teal blue, I have added a shadow of the teal blue to that. Right in the background we have got that gorgeous water nymph Crackle Mousse through the stencil. You can see how beautifully it cracks when you put it through the stencil. It just kind of like perfectly cracks in a mosaic pattern in the design of the stencil. It just amazes me every time how fantastic it looks when you use it through a stencil. And then I've brought in that similar kind of colour using the ocean colour of cardstock with some of the cog designs as well. Because I'd kind of masked off the stencil to just use half of it, it was more of like a big rectangular block just in the centre. I used some washi tape to mask off this area, and it was just a rectangular block in the centre. So I thought bringing in some of the die cut cogs worked really nicely, and if you wanted them to tie in even more, you could have patted on some of this mousse onto the cog die cuts as well, and you know, brought all of that together even more. But I really like how that one turned out. So this is my nurse themed card, and I've actually used the other half of the stencil just with the Bohemian Teal vintage drops, pouncing it through with the sponge again. And you can see that gorgeous matte finish that they give in the background, especially compared to the shiny foil on the foiled Kraft card. They give that beautiful matte finish, and using the sponge with them through a stencil gives a really lovely crisp finish as well, which is nice. If you're not getting the results you want by just tapping, you can kind of like tap and twist and just make sure you don't budge the stencil out of the way as well. But it gives a really cool background, and I thought this worked really nicely for like NHS kind of colours almost in the background. And then I've done like the little sort of clip portion using that piece that I think is supposed to go round the centre of two cogs to sort of combine them together. And then I've used the foil craft card, and I've put the watch face upside down because I'm pretty sure it's supposed to be upside down. And to tie that ginger colour in a little bit more, I've stuck the hands over the top. So luckily whoever designed this made the hands at 10:10, and the dies are also at 10:10. So it worked really nicely to cover up those two stamped hands, and then you've still got the second hand on there as well. But I thought that worked really nicely as a sort of retirement for a nurse as well. And it's slightly more on the masculine side, so it could definitely do for a male nurse too, which is great. Then I have done a DL card using the carriage clock design, and I did this as a happy retirement card too, because I feel like I don't know if it is an actual thing or whether it's just a thing in my mind, but I'm sure it's like a sort of a tradition to give people a carriage clock when they retire. So I thought that would work really nicely for this, and I did happy retirement, where has the time gone, as the sentiment. I've done the little key on there as well, and I've painted that in with the Glacier Paste, and also on the hands of the clock too. And we've got all the different colours of cogs in the background as well. So you've got this gorgeous one that ties in with the foiling on the craft card. We've got the red to bring in the red from the carriage clock, and I used the textured brick colour Craft Perfect in the background, and then the opera red to cut the detail out in the foreground as well. And I've got that little strip of teal going across the background, so I've mounted the sentiments onto that as well. So that's that card. Then this was playing around with the Crackle Mousse again, but using the other side of the stencil, and this was again another experiment because I was seeing if the Crackle Mousse still worked nicely on the textured side of the Craft Perfect, and it does. And you can even tear along, even though it's got like the Crackle Mousse on there, you can still tear your cardstock afterwards as well, which I thought was a nice kind of experiment to try too. And then I kept this one really sort of simple and a little bit sort of monochrome-y, using some cream cardstock, which isn't in the kit, but it went really nicely with the patterned paper. There's actually the patterned paper in the background. It's so subtle you can hardly see it on the camera, but I decided to bring in some cream because I thought it went nicely with that patterned paper. So I've done the cream and then the darker teal colour of Cogs and the little chains and stuff. I've used the vintage drops, so you can see that satin matte finish on those as well. And then I've done retirement time to change it, so it's not happy retirement, it's retirement time, just masking off the happy and stamping the time underneath. And then I've mounted it onto the darker blue cardstock as well to make that pop out. Then I was having fun, I told you earlier, I was having fun mixing all of the Nuvo products and creating some really cool backgrounds. So this was all 4 Nuvo products onto one of the Easy Clean mats, and I was just squishing all the different bits of card in. So this was the first one, then this one, then this one, then this one. And I really loved how they turned out. So you've even got like little bits of Crackle Mousse in there, you've got concentrated portions of the Glacier Paste going into the Shimmer powders, less of the mousse there, but it's still giving that crazed kind of effect. And then you've got a little bit of the blue Bohemian Teal in that sort of matte finish as well. I really love how they turned out, and I'm glad I've got 2 extra ones that I can use on different projects as well. But I decided to use the really sort of Nuvo full one, because this was the first impression, so it's got a lot of the Crackle Mousse on there and a lot more of the vintage drops on there as well. I decided to use this as the main background on this card because I knew I wanted to put Nuvo drops around the alarm clock, and so I've done time flies when you're having fun, and then I've sort of just done the alarm clock floating through the air. But I was thinking, I don't know how many of you would have them. It depends if you've been a fan of Tonic for a long time, but they brought out media dies a while ago. They were a darker colour of metal, and they had a really thick cutting edge that you would need a metal plate to cut them with, but they had a set that had wings in it. So you could, if you had that set, or if you have another die set that has little wings in, you could actually put wings on the alarm clock, so it kind of makes sense that time flies, you know, makes it more of a punny kind of card then as well. But I left them off because I know Tonic don't sell them anymore, so, but I thought that would be another nice way of using it. Then once I had done these 3 backgrounds, I still had a little bit left on my mat, but it wasn't as like crisp sort of colours, so I smushed this one into it, and then I decided to sprinkle on some extra shimmer powder and then just take the vintage drops and go like this across the background, and it gave this really cool effect. And I wanted to show how you could use the cogs as apertures on your card as well. So I've cut cog apertures, and then that gorgeous background shows through. And then I've also done the clock face on the top, but I've cut the centre out as well, so it's more like a donut, so it doesn't cover too much of the centre. And then I've also mounted on some of the white on white cogs back on as well. And I thought it just made a different kind of look for a card, and it could even be a wedding card. I mean, maybe if you didn't go as crazy with the background and you kept it more subtle, it could definitely be a kind of wedding card as well. So I think that would work really nicely. Then I did these 2 here, which are using the 2 different mirror cards that we've got in this kit, but I embossed them with the stencil. So you run them through in your machine with the same sandwich that you would use to emboss a die, but you use the stencil instead. And the formation of the sandwich needs to be base plate, then your green squishy mat if you're using the tangerine, then your piece of card with the pretty side facing up, so the shiny side, then you put your stencil on top, and then you put your embossing plate on top. And that should give you an embossed impression. It does tend to vary from machine to machine, so you might want to use like a couple of pieces of paper as an extra shim, or a piece of grey board or something as an extra shim, but try it on a small piece of card first to see if you can get it to work, and then, you know, play around with your sandwich. But it does give a really lovely, like, shallow embossed sort of effect, and especially on mirror card it looks fantastic, because even if it hasn't embossed very deeply, it really shows up on mirror card. And then to add a little bit of colour to it, this one I just took some of the Glacier Paste straight out of the pot and wiped it over the top, and then this one I actually had left over of my mixture of these two mixed together, and I used my palette knife and I scraped it so it's in the background, and then the rest of the detail is kind of sticking up out of it, so it gives a different kind of a look really. It kind of looks like the background was this, and that I've managed to use some kind of really shiny mirror effect through the stencil. So I thought that was another cool way of using the stencil with some of the Nuvo products. And then this one I have done Time With You Is Well Spent, and then I've done 3 of the little hourglasses in there, and I've just layered up some different elements from that gorgeous main frame, some extra little cogs. And then the central piece is what I had made this for, so I'd used that half of the stencil with the Glacier Paste onto the ginger pie cardstock, and then I just cut it out once it was dry. So you can definitely add your Nuvo to your cardstock and then cut it into your shapes as well for a different kind of look. So it goes all the way up to the edges, and you haven't got any like extra blobs where, you know, you had already die cut it and then the product sort of built up at the edges. It gives a really clean finish basically if you do your Nuvo products first and then die cut it. So that gives that kind of effect for that card. And then this one was again layering everything up, but using more of the specialty card for this kind of piece rather than cutting it from white, so it really stood out. It kind of blends in a little bit more, but I felt like it needed more white because I'd used One Day at a Time as the sentiment. It needed more white on there, so I just took a paint pen and did some fine little stitches on there. And a paint pen is fantastic to go on top of your mirror card or your luxury card as well, that has that more slick kind of finish to it. So that was that one. And then the final one, which I think could be my favourite. I don't know why I like this one so much. I just really love how it turned out. But I was wanting to show the cog as an aperture. And then I wanted to show how you don't have to just stick the cogs onto the card, they can be poking through an aperture. And this was the one that I was going to turn into that kind of shaker card idea where the cogs would sort of move together and connect into each other, but it didn't really work. So I turned it into this instead, and I really like this one. So I thought this was a good idea for showing you because it shows you how to use your waste pieces as well. These cogs could all be leftover ones that you had from die cutting all your other bits and pieces. These fine ones here in the red are actually from the main frame. They're these kind of ones from the frame. And then this was actually from an aperture that I was cutting into something else as well. Then all of these like little pie wedge pieces, which kind of remind me of Trivial Pursuit, these are all the waste pieces from these large cogs here. I'd cut them from all of the different colours pretty much, so I had loads of these leftover pieces, so I just picked a pattern that I liked with picking 4 colours and following it round, and then I just created that in lots of different areas, and I had enough to do 4 complete circles, so I did 1, 2, 3, and then I used half and half to kind of balance it across the card as well. So just a great way of using up all of your little scraps and not wasting any of your gorgeous specialty cardstock. But I'm sure there's plenty of other patterns that you can create with these little triangle pieces as well. You could do them going across the card, you know, one up, one down, all the way across, and make a strip with like a curvy edge to it. You could make them follow around here as well, all sorts of different ways of using it. And then I've used Where Has the Time Gone on this one. So I hope you enjoyed this Tonic craft kit unboxing video for kit number 59, which is called Clocks and Cogs. And I hope I've given you enough inspiration with all of these different designs here as well. And hopefully just me rabbiting on about stuff has maybe sparked some other ideas as well, like maybe doing the grandfather clock idea. Maybe you know someone with a grandfather clock and you think they'd really love a card that looks like one. Or actually, you know what I was saying about putting this on a portrait DL card? You could just make it a shaped card as well. It could just be a grandfather clock shaped card too. That would look fantastic as well. You could do spinner cards with these. You can definitely do shaker cards with them. You could do shaped cards with them. As I was saying about the grandfather clock, you could do a cog shaped card as well, or you could do like 3 cogs in a row or something. Trying to make a 3D watch that a child could wear as well. So many different possibilities and ideas that you can do with this month's kit. So really hope you enjoyed the video. If you do want to get hold of this kit, I will leave the links to the Tonic websites below the video as well, but I know a lot of you are already subscribed to it. But thank you so much for watching, and I will see you again in the next video. Bye!